There's a quiet voice in your mind that you've likely heard for years. It doesn't shout. It doesn't scream. It speaks in calm, familiar phrases that sound like truth. It often says things like, "Maybe I'm not ready yet," or "What if I fail?" or "Someone else would do it better." And while it seems small, this voice holds incredible power, not because it's loud, but because it's constant. This is the inner voice of doubt. And if you don't learn to recognize it for what it is, it will quietly run your entire life. Not by destroying you, but by keeping you small. By making you hesitate just long enough to miss your chance. By convincing you that safety is better than growth. And perhaps most dangerously, by making you believe that it's your own voice rather than something you learned long ago and never questioned. We're not born with doubt. We learn it through experience, criticism, subtle rejection, or moments where we felt unseen. And the mind, being the pattern maker that it is, begins to protect us. It says, "Don't try that again. Stay quiet, stay small, stay where it's safe." But safety is not the same as peace. And playing small is not the same as being wise. Before we go further, take a moment to claim your shift. In the comments, write, "I release the voice of doubt." This small action can serve as a turning point, an energetic step toward reclaiming your power. And if this message resonates, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may be silently battling the same inner voice. Let's begin with an honest question. How many opportunities have you delayed, avoided, or completely missed? Not because you weren't capable, but because you hesitated just long enough for fear to take over. Doubt rarely shows up as panic. It usually disguises itself as logic, caution, or responsibility. You'll say to yourself, "I just need a little more time," or "It's probably not the right moment." But that little more time turns into months. That "not right now" becomes years. And eventually, it hardens into identity. Doubt becomes a personality trait. You start thinking, "I'm just someone who overthinks. I'm just someone who struggles to decide. I'm just someone who needs more clarity." But what if that's not who you are? What if that's just a mental habit you've repeated so many times, it began to feel like who you are? That's the trickiest thing about the inner voice of doubt. It borrows your tone. It sounds like you. It uses your own memories against you. It says, "Remember last time? You failed. You were embarrassed. You were rejected." And because the voice uses evidence, you believe it. But the voice never mentions the times you succeeded, the times you were brave, the times you rose above fear. It only highlights what keeps you afraid. In Buddhist teachings, there's a concept called Mara, a figure that represents temptation, fear, and illusion. When the Buddha was meditating under the Bodhi tree, Mara appeared, not as a monster, but as thoughts, doubts, illusions, distractions. Mara whispered, "You're wasting your time. Who do you think you are?" But instead of fighting Mara, the Buddha did something powerful. He acknowledged him. He said, "I see you, Mara." And in that seeing, the illusion lost its power. The same principle applies to the voice of doubt. You don't need to fight it. You need to see it clearly. You need to pause when it speaks and say to yourself, "Ah, there you are. I know this voice, but I don't have to follow it." Awareness breaks the spell. It doesn't silence the voice entirely, but it weakens the grip. Now, let's look at how this voice of doubt shapes your energy, not just your decisions. Doubt contracts your field. When you hesitate, your body tightens. Your breath becomes shallow. Your posture shrinks. Your tone becomes uncertain. The universe doesn't just respond to your words, it responds to your frequency. When your energy contracts, life mirrors that contraction. Opportunities close. People pull back. momentum fades. Compare that to the energy of belief. When you trust yourself, even just slightly more than you doubt, your body opens. You stand taller. You breathe more deeply. Your thoughts expand. You speak from center. And that energy draws in support, clarity, and aligned action. You're not waiting for proof before you move. You're moving and creating the proof along the way. This is not about blind confidence or pretending to have all the answers. It's about choosing trust over fear, even when fear still whispers. It's about recognizing that the voice of doubt may always exist, but it doesn't have to lead. You can acknowledge it without obeying it. You can hear it without handing over the wheel. Many people wait for the voice of doubt to go away before they act, but that day never comes. The mind will always present fear when you move toward expansion, because expansion means stepping into the unknown, and the mind's job is to keep you in the known, even if the known is limiting. That's why monks and spiritual teachers practice observing the mind without attaching to it. In meditation, thoughts rise and fall. Some are pleasant, some are painful, but none of them are you. They're just clouds passing through the sky of awareness. When you remember that, you don't get caught in every thought. You begin to witness instead of react. And from that witnessing, a new voice begins to emerge. Not the voice of fear, but the voice of wisdom. The question becomes, which voice do you feed? Because every time you obey the voice of doubt, you reinforce it. You teach your nervous system that hesitation equals safety. And over time, that becomes the default. But every time you act with courage, even a small act, you weaken the habit. You begin to teach your system that trust is safe, that action is rewarding, that growth is possible. Let's explore what the voice of doubt often sounds like in everyday moments. It rarely uses obvious fear language. It's far more subtle than that. It says things like, "Let me think about it more," or "Maybe I'll start next week," or "I'll wait until I feel more ready." And each time you say those words, the door of action quietly closes a little more. It doesn't slam shut, but it drifts inward, slowly, until it becomes harder and harder to reopen. Doubt disguises itself as wisdom. But it's not wisdom. Wisdom is calm and expansive. Doubt is tight and uncertain. You can feel the difference in your body. When something is right, there is a quiet clarity, even if it's scary. When something is coming from doubt, there's a stickiness, a pause, a contraction. Your breath shortens. Your attention narrows. You get stuck in micro decisions, rethinking the same question from 20 different angles. This isn't overthinking by accident. It's a self-protection mechanism. The brain thinks, if I analyze this just a little more, maybe I can avoid disappointment. But the reality is, most of what we call overthinking is a fear of feeling. We don't want to feel regret or embarrassment or rejection. So we think instead. But thinking without action becomes its own form of paralysis. And paralysis is where dreams go to disappear. Here's something monks understand well. The mind doesn't need to be silenced. It needs to be witnessed. When a doubtful thought arises, they don't chase it or push it away. They observe it, name it, and return to the breath. This simple act of naming the thought breaks its illusion. It's no longer the voice of truth. It becomes what it always was, a passing mental habit. You can do the same. The next time you hear yourself say, "I can't do that," pause. Say out loud, "That's the voice of doubt." Don't fight it. Don't argue. Just name it. And then ask, What would I do if I didn't believe this thought? That one question creates space, and space is where clarity lives. Let's also talk about how the voice of doubt affects your wealth and prosperity. Many people think abundance is about effort, working harder, doing more. But true abundance begins with belief. If you don't believe you deserve more, you'll block it, consciously or unconsciously. If you doubt your value, you'll undercharge, avoid opportunities, or self-sabotage. Doubt becomes a filter through which every financial decision is made, and that filter creates scarcity. You'll see an opportunity and say, "That's not for me." You'll get paid and immediately feel guilty. You'll avoid asking for more because you're afraid of seeming greedy. But these behaviors aren't based on logic. They're based on a habit of self-doubt, a habit that was likely planted long ago. Perhaps when you were told that wanting more was selfish, or that security was more important than fulfillment. And now that voice runs in the background of every choice. The key to changing this is not shaming yourself for having doubt. It's choosing new behavior despite it. Doubt says, "Don't apply for that role. You're not qualified." You apply anyway. Doubt says, "Don't share your idea. What if people judge you?" You share it anyway. Doubt says, "This won't work." You say, "Maybe, but I'm willing to find out." And in that willingness, something shifts. You move from being a prisoner of your thoughts to being a partner with your courage. This is the energy monks call right action, acting from alignment, not fear. It doesn't mean you never doubt. It means you no longer worship doubt as truth. You see it, you bow to it, and then you walk past it. Here's a powerful daily practice to begin weakening the voice of doubt. Each morning, before the noise of the day begins, sit quietly for 2 minutes. Breathe deeply, place your hand on your heart, and ask, "What does courage sound like today?" Wait. Listen. Don't force an answer. Just create the space. Sometimes it will whisper, sometimes it will roar. But the more you listen, the more it speaks. And each time you act on that voice, no matter how small, you build a new mental habit. A habit of trust, a habit of expansion, a habit of moving toward the life you actually want, instead of circling the one you're afraid to claim. Remember this: doubt is not your enemy. It's your indicator. When it shows up, it's often a sign that you're standing at the edge of something meaningful. You don't feel doubt about things that don't matter. You feel doubt when something has the power to stretch you, to grow you, to redefine you. And the very presence of doubt is often proof that you're getting close to something true. But getting close is not the same as stepping through. The life you want lives on the other side of that step. And only you can take it. Not when the doubt goes away, but while it's still there, watching, whispering, waiting to see if you'll listen. You are not your doubt. You are the awareness behind it, the stillness that sees it rise and fall, the courage that can walk forward anyway. And when you begin to live from that place, life responds differently. People feel your energy. Opportunities begin to appear. Doors open, not because the world changed, but because you did. So ask yourself now, where in your life has doubt been leading? In your relationships, your creativity, your purpose, your voice? What have you been postponing, not because it's wrong, but because you were afraid to believe it was right? The next time that voice returns, and it will, try this. Instead of saying, "What if I fail?" say, "What if this works?" Instead of saying, "I don't know enough," say, "I can learn as I go." Instead of saying, "I'm not ready," say, "I've been preparing my whole life for this moment." These small shifts don't erase the doubt, but they dissolve its power. They remind your mind that it is not the master, it is the servant, and the soul does not wait forever. Let's look at how your nervous system is affected by the inner voice of doubt. Every time you hesitate, avoid, or second-guess yourself, your body interprets that as danger. Even when nothing external is threatening you, the internal message is, "I'm not safe to act." And over time, that message gets hardwired. You begin to live in a low-grade state of tension, always bracing for judgment, failure, or disappointment, even when none of it is happening. Here's another tool: movement. Doubt thrives in stillness, but not the peaceful stillness of meditation, the frozen stillness of inaction. When your body doesn't move, your energy doesn't move. So take a walk, stretch your arms, shake out your hands, let the body move the energy. Doubt may begin in the mind, but it nests itself in the body, and movement dislodges it. Also be mindful of the words you speak out loud. Doubt has a voice, but so does clarity. The more you verbalize hesitation, the more real it becomes. The more you say, "I don't know if I can," the more your body believes it. Start speaking what you want to move toward. Say it even before you fully believe it. "I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm becoming stronger every day." These aren't empty affirmations. They're repatterning tools. Spoken energy becomes lived energy. Let's now talk about identity. Because the deepest habit of doubt isn't just what you think, it's who you think you are. If you've carried doubt for a long time, it may have become part of your self-image. You might say, "I've always been this way," or "That's just my personality." But identity is not fixed. It's shaped by repetition. And what was repeated can be rewritten. The monks say, "You are not the labels, you are the awareness behind the labels." So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'm not good at that," or "I've never been confident," pause. Ask yourself, is this a truth or just a thought I've believed for too long? Then write a new sentence, one that honors your potential instead of your past. Maybe you're not fearless, but you are courageous. Maybe you're not certain, but you are willing. Maybe you're not there yet, but you are on the path. That shift in language is subtle, but powerful. It allows you to see yourself not as someone stuck, but as someone becoming. And that's what this whole process is about: becoming, not fixing, not proving, not arriving, just shifting, just returning to the self beneath the doubt. Because that self is still there, quiet, steady, waiting. Let's finish with a simple visualization. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a doorway. Behind you is everything you've known: the doubt, the hesitation, the moments you talked yourself out of your own greatness. In front of you is the life you've always wanted, but you've never fully claimed. The doorway isn't locked. There's no wall. There's just a choice. Now feel the voice of doubt rise inside you. Hear what it says. Let it speak. Then, in your mind, say gently, "I see you, but I'm walking anyway." Step forward, breathe, and feel what changes. Because when you walk, despite the doubt, you begin to dissolve its power. You create new neural pathways. You begin to trust the unknown. And you begin to align with a life that isn't ruled by hesitation, but by clarity. So now, let me ask you again. What would you do if you stopped waiting for the doubt to leave? What would you start today if you trusted that you were already enough? Who would you become if your decisions were made from courage instead of fear? The life you want is not as far away as it feels. It begins with one decision: to stop feeding the voice of doubt and start listening to the voice beneath it, the one that's always known where you're meant to go. If this message resonated with you, take one final action to affirm your shift. Type this phrase in the comments: I release the voice of doubt. Then, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who needs a quiet reminder of their own strength. And today, you've taken a powerful step forward.